This green sweat gland here that connects to it, that's your apocrine sweat gland. That's the one, when you hit puberty, becomes activated. Produces those pheromones, that specialized milky white sweat. Your regular sweat gland is right here. You see how it goes to the surface? This one goes to the hair follicle. Your eccrine or eccrine, that's your just temperature regulation sweat gland. Apocrine is the pheromone producer. Located alongside, further up, the top of the dermis, you have the sebaceous gland. Your little erector pili to make that hair stand up. Your erector pili, if you look at it, there are free-ending sensory, these nerves right here, sensory receptors kind of wrapped on it. So whenever you feel, whenever your hair moves, your body feels it, goes and communicates with your brain that something has disturbed your hair. I should pay attention, you know, maybe a bug lands on you or something. Blood vessels. This epidermis, it's really only the bottom layer that has live cells. Towards the top, they kind of die off and stack. There's approximately 7 layers of your epidermis, depending on what region of the body we are. This one only does the 5. So let's talk about that epidermis and then we'll take a break. So 5 layers or strata. That outermost layer, the horny layer, or the stratum corneum, these are completely dead keratinocytes. So all these are made up of keratinocytes. Keratinocytes are skin cells. They make keratin, but they're skin cells. At this layer, they're done. They're dead. They're hanging out. They're protected. Now, depending on the region of the body, you can have the stratum lucidium, or the clear or glassy layer. This is what gets thicker based upon need to give you a callus. That's why if you ever looked at a calloused hand, it's not clear, but it's like opaque. It catches the light a little bit more. It kind of, I want to say it like it glows.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Check it out if you know somebody who's got some calluses. Y'all have calluses on your hands?
Yeah.
Not for long. When I was a kid, you know, we did a lot more writing. We had writing exams and penmanship courses and all that. Did you guys ever get calluses a little older? You ever get calluses on your fingers from all that writing?
I have like a bump.
Yeah, me too.
That's never went away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's not. It feels like a.
That's child abuse, right? Like, we were being forced to write that much. I remember my fingers, like, aching. And, yeah, your fingers, like, looks different on your right hand than your left hand. Because you had to write. It's thanks to this. Your body adapted. It's not, so, your bones do get thicker when a load is placed on them. People who work out have thicker bones. So, potentially it could have been a thickening of the bone in this area. This stratum lucidium layer definitely got thicker. Over the years, mine isn't much of a callus anymore. But I remember being a kid and it was hard and it was like gross. Delish now. You see these on your hands, your feet, sometimes your elbows and knees. But they can develop anywhere. You have your granular layer, or stratum granulosum. This is where the cells are still alive. Oof. Located within this layer, and a little bit below, in the thickest layer of that stratum spinosum, you have white blood cells, known as Langerhans cells. When we talk about macrophages, big eaters, so there are some floating around in your body, free floating. They can move, they can go places, they travel the bloodstream or whatever. There are some that are fixed. And Langerhans cells, located kind of between here in these layers, they're fixed, they stay there. They're special eaters. So anything that comes through, let's say you get like a very minor cut, like a paper cut, it's thanks to Langerhans cells that kind of keep that paper cut from turning into a horrific infection. At this granular layer, this is where a lot of keratin is produced to help waterproof you. The bottommost layer, your germinating layer, your basal layer, is where cellular mitosis occurs. We're creating new keratinocytes at the basal layer. And then they just like work their way up. New cells are created, and they're just pushing on top of each other. In about 3 weeks, they're done. And then just below that, you have that basement layer. Now all the way down in your germinating layer, you also have special skin cells. Here, this is a picture I'm referring to. You have special skin cells called melanocytes that produce melanin. This gives your body the pigment. Whatever color you are, it's thanks to these melanocytes. Now freckles. What's a freckle?
It's a concentrated amount of melanocytes.
Almost. It's a concentrated amount of melanin. You just have melanocytes in this area that are really good at their job. And for some of us, they're triggered by the sun. I walk into the sun, I stay white year round. I just get more freckly. I'll turn red and it just peels off. That's just me. That's my melanocytes. Some people walk into the sun for 5 minutes, their melanocytes produce enough melanin based on the sun, they get a nice tan color. What about moles? That is a buildup of melanocytes.
Okay.
So a freckle is like, let's just say one melanocyte that's really good at its job in just a very small localized area. A mole, however, there's a collection of melanocytes. There's more of them. That's why it kind of mounds up. It's darker because there's more melanin in that area because there's more cells. They can get a little wonky though. And you can get skin cancer because these melanocytes get a little too good at their job. They don't turn off. They produce more of themselves, and the mole starts to misshapen. So in your book, you have the ABCs of moles, looking on page 66. Basal cell carcinoma. And it's called basal cell carcinoma because it starts at this basal layer. So these cells are just producing rapidly. And since that's where the melanocytes are producing rapidly, and they're producing melanin rapidly. So ways to tell that a mole is potentially cancerous, because we can't be like, that looks like cancer. We can't tell our client that. But we can say, hey, have you ever had this mole checked out? It just looks a little big, you know. Got some irregular borders. You might just want to have somebody look at it. But the things you look for melanoma, which is the more serious of them, asymmetry. So it's got irregular borders. So asymmetry, it's heavier on one side than another. Borders, it's irregular. The color, it's not just a uniform brown, most moles are pretty dark, uniform brown. But if it's like patchy in color, maybe it's a little scaly looking, but only on that mole, not that they have, you know, psoriasis or severe dehydration. It's just on that mole. Diameter, if it's larger than 6 millimeters. And there's a last one, it's not listed here, it's E. It's evolution, which means that it changes over time. It grows rapidly. A mole, you pretty much just have it. It doesn't usually change shape or size, it just is. It's just there. But if you have a mole that's changing shape, size, color, getting some wonky borders, maybe it gets a little crusty, definitely have someone check it out. And it's not our job to say, you got skin cancer. But you can say, hey, have you ever had this mole checked out?
What is skin cancer? Yeah, like, what is it?
Okay, so I can broaden that answer to all cancers. Now what causes them is what's different.
Right.
So we have pre-programmed cellular death. In the case of skin cells, roughly 3 weeks, these are born, they make their way up, they die. With the exception of these white blood cells and these melanocytes. They die. In case of skin cancer, they produce rapidly and they're not dying. They don't have that pre-programmed cellular death. So it grows. And skin cancer is scary because it might look like a little mole at the top, but it's sending roots down into the tissue.
Gotcha. Okay.
And what gets bad is when it metastasizes, so it spreads to other kinds of cells and other tissues. And some cancers are really scary in that they like grow on their own, and it's like ivy or vines that wrap around your organs. So it's not like, oh, you have lung cancer, let me take your lung. It's you have this weird tumor that just grows over everything. My grandpa died of that kind of cancer. I forget what it's called. It's like super rare and weird.
It goes like a web in inches.
Yeah, it just spreads on everything. So what causes it is, you know, so in the case of skin cancer, you know, the sun, so it's radiation. Melanin helps to protect against that. Could be anything. Could just be a genetic anomaly. Could be mineral oil. Did you guys learn about that? Was it yesterday you learned about lubes? No. Chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
That's why we don't use mineral oil. It's carcinogenic. They can cause skin cancer. Or since our skin is really good at absorbing, you can take it in and it can cause cancer throughout our body. But it is a great lubricant.
Would it just say on the ingredients mineral oil, or is there a technical term for it?
Is it mineral oil?
Okay, so they can't hide it.
No, they can't hide it. Oh, that would be illegal. They'll just sell you on the good stuff. It's great for lubricating metals and stuff. Just don't rub it on your skin. Do I want to do this next slide? Nah, the next one's the dermis. Let's take a break. 9:13. Come back at 9:26.
literally right across the parking lot. But we're kind of like tucked under there.